I just photographed what is perhaps one of the coolest things I have ever done. And in today's video, I'm gonna talk about how I captured the event, what cameras I used, what went right, and also what went wrong. So the Art Deco Society of California just put on an incredible party, like a block party, this past weekend right here in the Bay Area. It exceeded all expectations that I had. This party took over a historic block preserved by a museum. Everybody, we're talking over 500 tickets sold. Everybody there in costume, time period, authentic pieces from the 1920s and 30s. There were time period cars there, live music to the time period. Like, it was literally like I hopped in a time machine with my cameras and stepped back 100 years ago. The cameras that I used for this event were, of course, the Leica M11P Safari. The lens that I put on this camera was the 35 steel rim, but that wasn't the only lens. I also put on my 1940s Leica Sumitar 50mm lens, which is a screw mount lens, but I have an adapter that lives on it to put it onto the M. So between that 50 and that 35, I had my digital setup. I was also shooting my Hasselblad 500 CM with a 50 Zeiss Distagon on there, which is really a 28mm lens, so it's pretty wide. So I had my 28, I had a 35 and a 50, and that all just felt great to go out and capture for the day. But I decided to crank it up a notch. So about a month ago, I had posted on my Instagram that I really wanted to try a large format camera at some point. Like, I just put that out there into the ether, put it out there into the universe, and lo and behold, one manifested itself through a friend named David down in Florida. He mailed me his Linhof 4x5 with a Schneider Apo Simar lens. This is a f5.6, but in 4x5, that's the equivalent of a 1.5 lens. So it's kind of like having a Summilux on a giant camera. Now, I tried to take that camera to Yosemite 2 times and failed both times. The first time due to rain and bad weather. The second time due to a wildfire that prevented me from getting there. Posted about that right here. With literally no experience on this Linhof, I figured, why not take it to this event and see what I can do with it there? And with these 3 cameras, I showed up to this party and got to work. So let's take a minute and talk about what went right with every camera. With the Leica M11P and the steel rim, everything just felt really good. It felt really dreamy. It's a system I know. I'm very fast at focusing, so I felt like I could track everybody. I did a little hip shooting, just keeping the camera at f8 and having it zoned at like 2 to 3 meters. But for the most part, I was actually focusing and tracking people and just kind of running around, getting into the mix and seeing what I could do with this 35mm lens, and then again with the 50 Sumitar. One thing I did quite a bit there was I would shoot it at f1.4, which is very dreamy on the steel rim. In fact, it might even be a little much. Maybe like you really have to have a taste preference for how dreamy this lens is. But I would shoot it at f1.4 and then turn it quickly to go to like f5.6 as well. So I was kind of taking like something that would have all of that dreaminess and then getting a second shot that would be a little sharper and not have all that dreaminess. And yeah, that made more photos to have to go through of the same composition, but I do like having that option in post. And so shooting on the steel rim, I think that's a system that I'm kind of falling into anyway. It's like, let's get a crazy 1.4 and then let's get like an f5.6. Though I will say with that f1.4, it does look pretty great. Like, I'm very happy with it. Now, the 50 Sumitar is a very glowy lens as well. And honestly, it glows in a way that, again, like, you have to really have that taste for that look. I did a couple of photos at f2, which is wide open on this lens, but they are so dreamy and soft. They almost like, they're almost like too much to really like make the most of an event like this even, which is vintage, but it just felt too much for me. So I mostly shot the 50 at f5.6 for the time I had it on the camera. Things that went well for the Hasselblad 500 CM. Well, having that 50, which is the equivalent of 28, I was able to just put it at f8. I had the shutter at 1/500. I was shooting Kodak T Max 400, so I was really just out there, sunny 16, not metering anything. When I was running around just shooting in the bright afternoon sunlight, just f8 and 1/500 and just trusting that was going to be okay with the film that was in there. And it was totally fine. Sunny 16 is like the fastest, most efficient way to shoot if you just have a little confidence that it's gonna be okay and you shoot a film stock that makes sense to have a little latitude, both plus and minus. So I wasn't concerned about metering really with the Hasselblad. If I was in the shade, I just opened it up to 5.6 and that was it, guys. I just ran around changing the aperture by 1 stop depending on if the subject was in the shade or in the light. The photos that come out of the Hasselblad, they're just timeless photos. Whether you're using this Distagon or you're using the other lens I have, which is an 80 planar, the photos just look timeless. Like they look like they could have been taken today or 50 years ago or 75 years ago. Like there's just quality to the glass from that era that was like so true to life. It doesn't have like a ton of character. It just looks real. It's predictable, it's sharp, and it looks fantastic. And with T-Max in there, the black and white results they're beautiful. They look great. I ended up shooting 4 rolls on the Hasselblad, so there's 12 exposures per roll in this camera, so that's 48 photos. And then there was the Linhof, the large format. That experience was so much fun. I shoot Leica cameras because I like the manual experience of photography. And if you saw my video last week, Hasselblad just gave me the X2D2 with, that sounds like a droid by the way, the X2D Mark II sounds probably less like a droid. They gave me that camera with the 35 to 100. And now I have an autofocus camera, which is kind of weird. Like I'm not used to having autofocus. That camera is fantastic. I've got some really cool stuff ahead that you're gonna see here over the next few weeks. The Linhof could not be more opposite in every way than an autofocus digital camera of today because everything about that camera requires your attention. Let me just give you a quick overview of the steps of using that camera. First off, you've got to build it. So I got there, I put it on the tripod, I built it out, and I just carried the tripod around. Building it is not too hard. You open it up, you attach the lens, you get the bellows out, and you just kind of lock it all in place and you're good to go. And when you go to make the photo, you're going to set the camera up, you make your composition. However, you're looking on the back glass, the ground glass, which is the same size as the film negative is going to be. And everything is upside down. So you have to get your brain thinking in terms of upside down and backwards so that you can process what you're seeing as you're making that composition. When you're good there, focus is dialed, the tripod's locked in your composition, then you're going to close that shutter and you're going to set your settings based on your meter. So I'm taking that meter now, I've got my spot meter out, and I'm just dialing it in, looking at what the highlights are gonna be, what the shadows are gonna be, and picking the exposure that I think makes the most sense for the scene, like getting those settings dialed in. One thing I really wanted to do, I wanted to shoot this camera wide open. Like I was like, you know what? We're gonna see how dreamy we can make this thing at 1.5. And what that ended up doing was making my settings 5.6, which is wide open on that lens, the equivalent of 1.5. And the shutter was basically at 500 or 250. Oh, and I should add here, I was using FP for film, metering at 125, just box speed. So once you get your meter dialed in, your settings on the lens dialed in, you cock it back, and then you've screwed in by this point, I forgot to mention this, you screw in the shutter release, or you can just touch it. I used a shutter release. At that point, you put your film back inside, and then you pull the screen up when you feel like everything's good and you're looking and double checking everything, and then you can make that exposure. Then you're gonna put the dark slide back in and you're going to work backwards. You're gonna take that out and then you can, make a change in your composition, open the lens up, look through it again, go do something else, move the camera and all of that. I probably just spent way more time explaining 4x5 to you than necessary, especially if you've already done 4x5. But guys, it was an experience. That's the point I wanted to make. It is an experience to use that Linhof camera. I made 12 photos on the Linhof at this party, which honestly, I felt like a lot. I was hoping to do 8. and I was able to do 12. Now I had 4 film backs loaded up. Each side had a sheet of film that gave me 8. But then Jen, in her kindness, took some time to reload film for me in the dark bag and get the film out, put new film in. It took her like 45 minutes, and it would have taken me 45 minutes as well. But she did a great job, and while she was doing that, I was able to run around and keep shooting. So big thanks to Jen, and if you're not subscribed to Jen's brand new channel, be sure to check her out right here. So that was the process of using those cameras at this event, but now let's talk about the things that did not go well with each of these. Now, I've already talked about the glowiness on the 35 steel rim lens here and using the 50 Sumitar. It's really hard to pick something that didn't go right using the Leica because of all of the options with post, with cropping, with dynamic range. I mean, there's really nothing I'm gonna say here that went wrong using this. And I mean, you would come to expect that if you shoot digital cameras, in any digital camera from today, and you've used it enough to know what you're doing. When we get into the film cameras now, we definitely had things that did not go right. Let's talk about the Hasselblad 500 CM. Now I've got 2 film backs for this camera, one that is silver and one that is black. And typically the silver one has color film, the black one has monochrome film, and that's how I kind of know what's in each. For this event, I loaded them with the same film, that T-Max 400. But unbeknownst to me, the black one has bad light leaks. And I haven't used that one in a long time because I mostly shoot color film. Half the photos that came out of the 500 CM, they have really bad light leaks. Also, I'm not really sure what happened, but one of the photos got a film burn on 120, which I've never ever had before. Somehow it fully exposed half the photo. I don't know how it happened. Maybe you can tell me in the comments. So that black film back definitely needs to be serviced, and I won't be using it until it does. Also, I'll just say about using the Hasselblad, I mentioned earlier the photos are very timeless, which I stand by that. They are very timeless, but they're also not super special. They just look like life. Like, they don't have like that 3D pop you see in like other medium format cameras. Like, they don't have that like huge fall off. You know, at f4, which is what my 50 is, my other one, which is, and I believe a 2.8, it's actually it's a 1.4, but it doesn't really look like it has a ton of fall off. So the Hasselblad photos, very true to life, but I wouldn't say they're super special. Now, what did not go right with the Linhof? I'm glad you asked. Nothing was more humbling than scanning those negatives and finding out that I kind of sucked at focusing that camera wide open. Imagine if you are a Leica user, which I imagine many people that watch my channel are Leica enthusiasts, and you take a Summilux out and you go shoot a whole day on the Summilux, which for me, a whole day ended up being 12 photos on the 4x5. But like, you give it your all on that Summilux, checking every box, every detail, and you miss focus. And you're like, oh crap, I can't believe I missed focus. I was even using the loop and I missed focus. I didn't ever miss focus bad. Like, it wasn't bad, but there are a few photos that I did that are just a little soft. I can see where the focus actually hit. They didn't hit where I wanted. You only really notice it if you are pixel peeping. Otherwise, it looks okay, especially in a digital usage. I'm not gonna print these in like some huge format. I was never gonna do that anyway. These photos were for the event and for my own personal usage. And for that one thing to go wrong, I do feel really good that everything else went right. All 12 exposures that I did worked. They all worked. They were all properly exposed. They just weren't all greatly focused. If I get to do this event again next year, which I hope they book me to do it again next year, I think I would do the same thing. I think I would try to go out there again with my Leica, with a Hasselblad, or maybe even my Rolleiflex next year. I brought the Hasselblad because of the film backs. I wanted to be faster and just switch film backs. But I would definitely love to go do the 4x5 at a party like this again. It was a ton of fun. Made some good friends doing it along the way too. That camera definitely attracted some people that wanted a photo made, and that's what I was there for, so I was able to do that. If you want to see my gallery from this event and step back in time and see what it was like, I've got a link in my description. And for those of you that are watching on your TV at home or wherever, I'm gonna put a QR code right on the screen that you can just scan with your phone and come check out that same gallery. I would love to hear from you in your comments below about what you think of these photos and the 4x5 experience, the medium format experience, or the 35. experience. I'd love to get your thoughts and hear your feedback on it. If you thought this video was fun, be sure to give it a like. And if you are not subscribed, well, make sure to hit that subscribe button. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.